All right, guys, wanted to follow up and close the thread on this fifth gear issue. I figured a video would be easier than just typing out the whole explanation. This is a 2007 Cobalt SS donor with the F35 manual transmission. I was having trouble with it popping out of fifth gear while just cruising down the road. For the Goblin guys, the first thing to check is this coolant hose. In stock form, it routes lower and it ends up hitting this counterweight or whatever you want to call it, and it'll pop it out of gear just from the physical force of it pushing on it. That was not the problem in my case, and I rerouted it up higher, so that's no longer in contact at all. In my case, it was worn out gears, and I'll show you what that is in a minute. But the bottom line is, to fix it, jack the car up, pull this wheel. This is the cover you want to go after. 10 bolts, 9 bolts, whatever it is. Pull that off. You are presented with something that looks kind of like this. Now, this one's already been disassembled, so it doesn't quite look like this. There's a roll pin on this shift fork. Drive that out with a roll pin punch. And then this part here, they call this a sleeve. That pops out. And then you will have to, I forget which part presses on. I think this part is I think this part is press fit. So you will need a gear puller. I use this with a little bit of dexterity. You can get it hooked around the edges there. Pop this off. There will be some little metal like leaf spring things. There's 3 of them. One here, one here, one here. They are all held on by a ring. They will probably pop off and fly everywhere when you remove this piece. So be ready for that. Do it slowly. They're little strips of metal about that long. I'll show them to you in a minute. And then this whole assembly comes off. Here's the synchronizer. Here's fifth gear. We'll go over to the bench and I'll show you what goes wrong with it. All right, so here's the fifth gear stack on the workbench. The sleeve has already been removed, and I'm going to try to show you what goes wrong here. These teeth, there we go. You see how gnarled up those are? They are supposed to have, they're supposed to be pointy, and they're supposed to have this little pinched bit of metal there. Get a pointer out. Right here. This is supposed to be here. All of this mess is worn down a lot. Now that goes in here, and I'll show you the intricacies of that in a minute. This piece is totally fine. That's not the problem. Here's the ring and these little metal clips that I was telling you about. I already lost one. So those come off. Synchro is also fine. The other offender here are these teeth right there. So this selector ring is supposed to engage those teeth, and because they both have these little pinched metal bits, they're supposed to nestle together, and the torque of the transmission is supposed to prevent it from popping apart. But as they get worn, they don't do that anymore. So it just has a tendency to just slip off like that. So basically this assembly needs to be replaced, and this assembly needs to be replaced. All the rest of this is fine, but it kind of comes as a package anyway. So what I ended up doing is I found a spare transmission. First, what I did is order brand new parts from esaab.com. It's a Swedish outfit. They have all these parts. However, the Swedish transmissions are not the same as the American ones, even though they sure look identical. If you buy the parts from them, first of all, this gear assembly comes with a whole bunch of stuff. I think it comes with all this here. That is part number 9117777. That's a $400 and some assembly. I thought that would fix my problem. Oh, and then this is part number 905-11624. So I ordered all that, and total came out to $552. I thought that would fix my problem. The issue is on the Swedish transmissions, this gear assembly has 54 teeth. The Swedish one has 53, and the Swedish one is larger. So it's a larger gear with fewer teeth, and if you get it, it will no longer mesh with the other gear that's on there. So I think I ended up getting a new transmission at that point, or a used transmission that was good, and that fixed my problem after I swapped out all the parts. I think if you wanted to get new parts, you could get away with it if you also bought part number 904, 908, 09. That is the corresponding gear that this meshes with. And the Swedish version, I think, has 35 teeth, and I think that ours has 37. I could have that backwards. So I think if you got all the meshing gears from the Swedish transmission, you could probably get away with it. Anyway, those are the part numbers that you're going to need if you're going to try that, or at least I think what you're going to need. I wanted to show one more intricacy here before I end the video. So when you're assembling this stack, you're going to have to put all these together. Little spring clips go on like this. We'll put the ring on first. And again, I've only got 2 of these little springs. This one, you kind of put it in there and then flatten it out. There we go. The ring holds them in place. Now this piece goes on here and it gets stuck on the little metal pieces. So you got to take a punch or something, push that in, push this one in. And again, there should be a third one, and then it will go down in place. Now, this piece here will go on a couple different ways. If you look very closely, there are a couple of teeth that are taller than the rest of them. Those will go on, this is incorrect, but they will go on in this gap. You put the tall teeth in the gap. That's not the right way to do it. If you do that, it will lock you out of 5th gear. You won't be able to put it in 5th gear, and it will bend this ring. That's how I know it doesn't work, because that's how I did it. The correct way to assemble it is, if you look at this piece, you will notice there are 2 teeth in the middle that are deeper than these other teeth. The tall teeth on the sleeve go into the deep teeth on this. If you put that all together correctly, and this one actually won't go anymore because it's so, it's so banged up. It will go if I'm really careful with it, but tolerances are so tight that it just pretty much won't go. Anyway, tall teeth from the sleeve, so I've heard it called a dog, go into the deep teeth on this. I forget what that's called. The whole thing, you're going to have to do that when it's on the car, by the way. This whole assembly, remember this was press fit, will now need to be very gently hammered back onto the transmission shaft. You got to do that while, it just happened, while keeping this piece nestled tightly onto this one so that it doesn't pop off and those little metal springs don't go anywhere. So it takes a bit of dexterity, but it really isn't all that difficult. I think with those part numbers that I gave you, again, if you want to do this new, I think you're going to need part number 9117777. That's the gear assembly. 905 11264. That is this sleeve. And this is the part that I haven't tested. I know those parts won't fit. I think if you also get 904, 908, 09, that's the small gear. I think if you got those parts, you could build this completely new and fix your problem. And finally, the gasket, 904, 862, 35. Get those parts. I think you can get this thing fixed, or get yourself a donor transmission like I did, and you can fix this yourself in your garage.